Welcome to episode 34 of Fascinating, a Star Trek podcast. The Apple.
In this week's episode, a landing party is trapped on the surface of a seemingly idyllic planet after one of the crew is killed by an angry flower, and the Enterprise is disabled by something emanating from the surface. With his ship headed for a fiery end, will Kirk be willing to destroy everything the natives believe in to save himself and his crew? Or is that one step too far?
Yes, the holding, the touching. Paul has forbidden this. Well, there goes paradise.
Ian, in your vision of paradise, is there a lot of touching?
There's a degree of touching. Some touching is prohibited.
A little bit of rubbing?
The bad touching, not allowed.
You okay?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, not bad. I was slightly surprised with this week's episode. I'd looked at the ratings on IMDb and the general feel I got from that, and what you had indicated was that this wasn't a highly regarded episode.
Correct.
However, I thought that it had a lot going on for it. And in fact, I would commend it highly with regards to a bit of character development that we witness.
Okay, that's probably fair. I did feel there was something familiar, maybe a bit retrodden in this one.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I also think I liked it because just about every week I watch this once. I take my notes and I watch it live. That's all I've...
Yeah.
At this point, that's the entirety of what I've seen. I'm taking my notes and I'm getting angry with Kirk.
As always.
Yes, appalling decisions. This is atrocious. But in fairness, it's acknowledged there are a level of self-awareness in this week's episode that I've not seen before, and for that, it is raised in my estimation.
It's certainly better than Who Mourns for Adonais.
That's for sure.
Wouldn't be hard.
No.
Shall we get into the meat of this? As
long as it's not the two veg, yes. Let's crack on.
So, you'll be disappointed to learn that we begin not on the bridge of the Enterprise, but already on a planet surface.
What I don't like about it when it's for note-taking purposes, because unless they identify it straight away, I've just written planet.
Yes.
It's easy to write bridge. We know where we are with the bridge.
Yeah, we get a name for this planet, but not for a wee bit.
I don't use it. It's too convoluted. I think I just refer to it as the planet.
Planet 6.
No, just planet.
Okay. This landing party is a particularly large one. I think uniquely large to this point.
Yeah, it's Kirk, Spock, Chekhov, and two men and a woman red shirt. They materialise onto this planet that has a lot of foliage and looks quite appealing.
They're quickly joined by McCoy and two more red shirts,
who are equally impressed by their surroundings. Kirk points out that the last scout ship reported strange readings, and therefore Starfleet want it looked into and contact made with the locals.
You can tell that McCoy is dreaming of mint juleps already.
He does like one.
Spock is noting that the soil is incredibly fertile.
Yes, perfect for husbandry, and the entire planet is of a consistent temperature.
Chekhov thinks it's a bit like Russia.
Yeah, and McCoy is compelled to correct his geography.
Well, I'm not sure that Chekhov accepts his correction. McCoy points out this is more like Eden, which Chekhov insists was just outside Moscow. Just then, and we've seen this, it reminded me a bit of This Side of Paradise, where a plant turned towards somebody.
No, before let's not get ahead of ourselves here.
Okay.
Kirk states that there is a village about 17 kilometres away, and they decide to head off to it. Now, what? 17? That's a huge distance to travel by foot in a party.
Yeah, but it's an uncontacted civilization. They obviously wanted to be careful not to surprise them and appear in the middle of their village.
They've never done that before. A 17-kilometre walk. I would be saying, beam me back up and beam me down 2 kilometres from it.
And I'll walk that distance.
Yeah, there's no need for this. This is the first of Kirk's poor decision making in this episode.
Maybe there wasn't somewhere safe to beam down anywhere closer.
Oh, we've never had this before.
Normally they look to find a clearing so they're not beamed into the middle of a tree.
There's nothing, so this is the safest place 17 kilometres away.
Better safe than sorry.
That's many hours of walking. And you don't know the terrain. That's if it's flat. They're going over rocks and all sorts. You're just increasing your chances of... How do they know they weren't going to approach an unpassable river, for example?
Well, they've probably checked it out.
Well, if they checked it out, then they should know where they beam down, and it's 17 kilometres far. I mean, I'm not being lazy, but...
It is a good 2-3 hour trek, isn't it?
I think it's more than that.
Well, depending how quickly you're walking.
In a group.
Yeah.
You can't all walk at the same speed as well. We've got to start little stragglers.
It's true. And it's not that safe, as we're about to find out.
Yeah, what happens?
It reminded me a bit of This Side of Paradise, where the plant just turns around and looks at somebody, then shoots them.
It's a red shirt, obviously. He notices a plant.
Yes, Hindorf, I believe his name is.
Yeah, he goes over to examine it, only to get a face full of lethal spray and a chest covered in thorns, spores type things.
Yeah, he's very quickly deaded.
Yeah, and at the same time we see a person hiding nearby, and Kirk makes one of his usual incredible decisions.
He certainly is concerned.
No, he goes over and he...
Oh, he sniffs the flower, doesn't he?
Yes.
This deadly flower, I'll get it right in my face.
I couldn't believe it. Now, at this point, I am thinking, yeah, get out of there. Get out. Abort. They're not protected, and in the past, we've seen them come down with the full sort of hazmat gear on.
Yeah, we saw that in The Naked Time.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, credits at this point, followed by the Captain's Log 3715.3. What do we find out?
We find out that the planet is called Gamma Trianguli 6, and it was previously unexplored, but one of the men has now been killed by a plant.
Yeah. Up on their bridge for the first time, Kirk communicates with Scotty, telling him to beam up the body as soon as they are out of the way. And Scotty has some disturbing news of his own. Well,
before he gets to his disturbing news, his reaction to Herndorf's death is a bit bizarre. He's not that bothered. He says, it's a shame, but by the way, we've got an engineering issue here.
Yeah, I think they're all used to it. I mean,
yes,
they lose that many
gets
people.
That many folk killed every time they go anywhere.
Yeah, what is their engineering issue?
There's a problem with the antimatter pods. They're not quite up to usual spec.
What are the antimatter pods?
Part of the propulsion system.
Right.
They need it for warp drive.
Okay.
We got into trouble the last time I tried to be specific about how it works, so it's not fuel. We should say that.
Okay.
But yes, Scotty's going to look into it. He doesn't think it's anything too serious.
No, but he does say it might have something to do with the electromagnetic fields down on the planet.
Perhaps. Kirk makes a decision at this point, which you probably didn't agree with.
Yeah, this is where it starts to get crazy. Rather than immediately beam back up themselves, Kirk starts touching and smelling some of these plants again. Yeah,
and he tells Scotty before he comes off the phone with him that they're going to carry on with the mission, and Scotty, knowing that a man's just been killed, asks, can I come down and join you? I quite like a little walk in the woods.
WTF is what I've noted here. Yes, this is crazy. Why would you want to put yourself in a position where there are deadly plants and someone just one of your colleagues has died?
Well, going by everyone's attitude, you get the impression they feel he brought it on himself. He's done something wrong. None of us got killed, so it must be, a mistake.
Incredible. Spock reports that there are unusual artificially produced subsurface vibrations. He's got his little tricorder out before Kirk tells Redshirt Mallory to stay behind and do or is it go ahead?
Let's go ahead. They're going to scout ahead on the 17-kilometre trek to the valley
and do a full recce of the vicinity, but to avoid contact with the local humanoids. How can you avoid contact if they appear?
Yeah, I don't know.
Doesn't make sense.
We get the traditional... Well, Spock notes that they're being watched at this point, and we get this sort of traditional trope of the one woman in the party being awfully scared by what's going on.
Yeah, I think Chekhov uses this situation to do a bit of... Well, initially I thought creeping, but it turns out she probably is up for it.
The way it's played, it's a pre-existing relationship.
It's Yeoman Landon.
Martha, I think is her first name.
Is it? Landon is how I'll be referring to her.
Okay. I think she's also a lieutenant, we hear at some point, which means she outranks Chekhov.
Okay.
Kirk speaks to Spock about this person watching them.
And he also, I think, correctly has a go at Chekhov and Landon for their nonsense.
He does. He tells them to focus on their work. I think they've been away looking for this person that Spock talked about.
We've seen this a few times with different people, but it's really unprofessional. They're down... I mean, I don't care if they're in a relationship or not. You're at your work. You're here on a mission.
Yeah. Concentrate.
Focus on the job.
It's like Scotty and Adonais when he started going nuts for this woman that didn't even like him.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff.
No wonder they all keep dying.
Yeah, pay attention. Stop looking at each other and start looking at the flowers in case they shoot you.
Yeah.
Anyway, like I say, Kirk and I think Spock have been away trying to find this person that's watching them and have been unsuccessful, and Kirk talks to Spock about it.
What does he say?
He says that the person who's watching them is agile, like a cat. It's not like my cat. My cat's the least agile creature you'll ever see. It just kind of stomps around and then slumps down in your lap.
Okay, fair enough.
Tries to jump on things and smacks off the front of them.
And after that, Kirk, I think then he calls them together to move out as a group.
Yes. And then Spock picks up a rock shortly after that.
Now, they're asking for it in this episode. So you've got a colourful rock here, don't know anything about it.
Let's
pick it
smash
up
yeah.
and I'll smash it. And I think he describes it as having a low specific gravity before he does that, and then decides to toss it aside.
I've never seen Spock do this.
No. I mean, why would you?
It's out of character.
Why would you pick up a rock and snap it?
Well, I've seen him do that before, but I haven't seen him toss something aside for no reason. Especially right after he said it's potentially very interesting.
Yeah. This lack of care is highlighted as it explodes upon landing, and rather than feeling ashamed, he covers his mistake by claiming it could be remarkable. It could be a remarkable find for a source of power. Idiot.
Yeah. And then puts the other half that he's got very gingerly down on the ground. It's like, no, chuck it far away. It might go off.
Yeah, maybe maybe it's not the landing. It might be the snapping was the equivalent of pulling the pin from the grenade.
Exactly. I would be getting as far away from the other half as I possibly could.
Or having a laugh thrown at to McCoy. Catch!
Yes.
Kirk, however, is more of the present and derides the place as the Garden of Eden with landmines.
Yes. Scotty now gets in touch with Kirk to say that the antimatter pods thing is actually a problem after all. They're now completely drained, they've lost warp drive. But, bright side, he knows why.
Why?
There's a beam coming from the surface from the area of the village that they've been talking about.
Yeah, but it declares that it is no immediate danger, and Kirk decides to continue and try and get some answers.
He's going to head for that village anyway. Spock posits that there could be some connection between the beam and the vibrations that he recorded earlier.
Yeah, and McCoy has found some of the thorns that killed their colleague, and as he shows them to Kirk, Spock spots a plant, take aim, and jumps in front of his captain to take the bullet.
This prompts a very sort of guilt-ridden response from Kirk, doesn't it? First of all, he's anxious to find that Spock's alive. McCoy doesn't respond to the question, but from the fact that he's treating Spock, it implies that he's not dead. Yeah,
McCoy administers a hypo with enough massive form D to make the entire crew do handsprings, apparently. That seems a bit excessive.
Especially as a first treatment.
Yeah.
It's like, he's been, right, there we go.
Can't get enough of a good
maximum
thing.
dose.
What can possibly go wrong?
Yeah. He'll start trying to jump through time or something.
And he claims that they need to get him back to the ship. So, Kirk communicates with Scotty and tells him to prepare to beam them up. There is, however, a problem.
Yeah, it's not working.
Yeah. After a couple of attempts, they realise they can't do it.
You couldn't even beam up a fly, he says. Although why it would make a difference what they were trying to beam up, I don't know. It's either working or it's not.
Really?
Well, you'd have thought so.
Maybe you need more power for something that's larger.
Maybe, but I've never ever seen an episode that I can remember where they could beam up small things, but not anything bigger. Maybe there is one. We'll find out.
Captain's log supplemental. Just a recap.
Yeah, it's now a nightmare apparently. The first guy dying, that was fine. But Spock's rock blowing up and then getting shot by another flare, that's a big deal because we like Spock.
Kirk communicates with Scotty and asks if the transporter problem is linked to the antimatter problem. I think that's probably a fair guess.
Yeah, Scotty says he'll look into it and get back to him.
Kirk eventually gets some positive news as he turns to find Spock rising and even has a bit of cheek about him.
You all right?
Dr. McCoy's potion is acting like all his potions, turning my stomach. Other than that, I am quite well.
Well, if your blood were red instead of green, you wouldn't have an upset stomach.
Just what do you think you were trying to do?
I surmised you were unaware of that plant, so I
Stepped in front and took the thorns yourself.
I assure you, Captain, I had no intention of doing that. It was merely my own clumsiness which prevented me from moving out of the way.
I see. Well, next time, just yell. I can step out of the way as quickly as the next man.
I shall do so.
Trying to get yourself killed. Do you know how much Starfleet has invested in you?
122,200.
Never mind. Look, thanks. Captain, take the post. Not only is something after us, but it's after the ship as well.
Captain, to affect the ship at this extreme range would require a highly sophisticated planetary defense system.
No sooner has Spock spoken, and the weather takes a turn for the worse.
It does. They witness dark clouds forming, and before they know it, lightning has disintegrated a red shirt before their eyes.
That's unfortunate.
That's two.
Two down.
Quite the
Two
tally
to
this
go.
week.
Well, we'll talk about that later. Mallory comes back from his scouting mission or doesn't come back, but he contacts them from ahead.
Yeah, I think he gives the coordinates of the village. But as he describes the primitive setting and something else of importance, the communications break down.
Yes, he can't make himself understood. But Spock has taken note of these coordinates and they're able to head off in that direction.
Yeah, apparently it's only now a short distance away. They must have done a fair bit of travelling.
Very quickly.
However, as they arrive, Mallory is running and shouting that something is over there and that he's seen nothing like it.
Yes, he's very agitated and makes a critical error.
What's that?
He lands one of his running steps on one of Spock's rocks.
And is no more.
He is blown up. 3 down. 1 to go. Kirk's a little bit upset because he's now lost 3 guys in the last 10 minutes.
Yeah, and talks about how Mallory's father helped him get into the academy.
Spock does his usual appeasement thing.
Well, he lies and tries to console him by saying that in each case it was unavoidable. Was it F unavoidable?
Well, Kirk quite rightly says it was perfectly avoidable. We should just have left when the first guy got killed.
And this is where I started to change my opinion of this episode. I thought, yeah, because I'm writing this going, why did he not beam... And it's been identified. There is an awareness. Kirk, I think this is the first time we've seen him really understand that he has severe flaws. And he's certainly in his decision making.
There's been other occasions when he's kind of lamented the loss of crewmen.
No, but I'm talking about putting the blame on himself.
Okay.
Realising that he could have done something, he should have done something differently here. And he expands upon it later so we can get back to it, I think.
Spock notes that he did have orders to follow, but Kirk laments the slavish following of orders and says, the Nazis were just following orders, that sort of thing. He says he could have overridden those orders and it isn't even an important mission.
Yeah, I like that.
They're interrupted at this point by the return of their shadow.
Yeah, describe this shadow.
It's the Catman.
Yeah, he's wearing some sort of skirt and he's topless, he's got strange hair and...
He's kind of orangey, sort of Trump looking.
Yeah.
If Trump were more slender.
Not quite as
and
repugnant.
had metal pins coming out the side of his neck. Chekhov and Spock stage a mock argument to draw the attention of this observer.
They do. We should also say that he's got flower bracelets round his wrists and that, so that sort of signifies a...
Peace and love.
Yeah. Whilst this diversion is going on, what does Kirk think the best thing to do is?
He kind of loops around behind the guy and then punches him in the face.
Really?
As you do.
Why would you do that?
In case he's violent, let's knock him out first. It's Starfleet rules. Wait, no, it's not Starfleet rules.
Incredible. You've no idea what's going on here.
When they're up in a spaceship, it's like, don't shoot first. Can't be the first one to shoot, but down here on the planet, punch whoever you want. It's only a punch.
But he almost immediately regrets it when the chap starts crying.
I won't hurt you. Do you understand? I won't hurt you.
You struck me with your hand.
Well, I won't strike you again. You've been following us. Watching us. Why?
I am the eyes of Vol. He must see.
Who is Vol?
Vol is Vol. He is everything.
Do you have a name?
I am Akuta. I am the leader of the feeders of Vol.
They're not going to hurt you, I promise you. Akuta. Akuta. We come in peace. We would like to speak to this Val.
Akuta alone speaks to Val. I am the eyes and the voice of Val. It is Val's wish.
Captain, this is fascinating. If you'll permit me, sir.
Kirk has an absolute cheek. We come in peace. The first thing he did was punch him in the face.
If you don't accept this, I will punch you again.
He's like an abusive husband. Look, trust me, I won't do it. I didn't want it. You made me do that. I will not do that again. I promise. We come in peace. How can you possibly say that after assaulting the person?
That's ridiculous. Yeah, the first thing you do to him. I don't like the fact he's watching me. I'm going to knock him out.
We heard something happening at the end of the clip then. What Spock has discovered is an antennae behind Akuta's ear.
Yeah, I thought he was going to do a mind meld or something like that, but he just pulls his hair back.
And he claims that they were given to him in the dim time and are the ears of Val in order that the people can obey him and his commands.
Fair enough.
Kirk wants to know if the people are close by, and Akuta says, yeah, he will take them to them.
It's only about 7 more hours by foot.
Depends what you mean by nearby.
Relatively speaking, they're nearer than the Enterprise. Speaking of the Enterprise, Scotty gets in touch with Kirk once more. He's got more bad news.
Yeah, there is a condition red now been activated on the Enterprise.
Yes, something from the surface has attached itself to them. They're being pulled down.
And they can't break loose. Kirk tells him to use full impulse power, which Scotty tells him that they already are on, but are losing ground.
They've got 16 hours before they burn up in the atmosphere. Well, that adds a bit of jeopardy, a time limit.
Yep, it's fairly common in this show, isn't it? That we tick down hour by hour.
Yeah. Kirk says, sort it out or you're fired.
Yeah, if he doesn't get the warp engines working. And he says he will do what he can before ending the communications.
Kirk goes back to Akuta.
He's now less patient, I think.
Yes, obviously, his ship's about to blow up. And it's Akuta's people who are doing it, he thinks. He asks about Val, but only gets vague responses.
Yeah, he rambles about how everything good comes from him and agrees to take Kirk to him, but warns that he only speaks through himself or to himself.
Yeah, he'll contradict himself in that wee bit later on, though.
In any case, they take their chances and follow him.
Yes, and they find a big stone snake head.
Yeah, it's a cave entrance.
Yeah, the entrance, it reminded me a bit of the setup in The Cage when they had the sort of false front on the mountain.
Yeah.
That sort of doorway. Mm-hmm. Akuta says that this is Val.
Yes, before we have a captain's log 3715.6.
Yes.
Kirk states they have been introduced to Val, which is probably the source of the power and their problems.
Spock is fascinated by this.
Yes, by the ancient workmanship and the fact that it is generating such power.
Yes, there's a force field as well around the entrance, which he demonstrates rather effectively.
How?
By walking into it and
what
being
happens?
Catapulted across the floor.
He is okay and states that it's a 30 metre protective radius.
There was no other way to discover that.
He should have pushed McCoy.
Yes. Or the last remaining red shirt.
So Kirk asks Kuta how he talks to Val, and he tells him that he is called to him, but he sleeps now.
Yeah, and there's no other way to do it.
No, but when he is hungry, it may be possible to have this communication, but only if Val is up for it.
Yeah. Which is a wee bit of a, walking back of his previous statement that Val would only possibly speak to him. He offers to feed them and give them somewhere to rest in the meantime.
Nice.
If you can trust him.
So we head to the village, where there are many other people just like Akuta, and are introduced as the people of Val.
Yeah, you see many other people. One of the observations that the Enterprise crew make is it's just a small number of adults, no children, no families.
Yeah.
Although, is it not possible there could be other people elsewhere?
Yeah, that's possible, I suppose.
But that's ruled out when they make it clear they do not understand the concept of children.
Yeah, after it's explained to them Akuta describes them as replacements and states that they don't need them. And in any case, Val does not allow them. It reminded me a little bit of Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Fair enough. Do you not get replaced?
That's a place where the leader does not allow children. There are none. And it's
Catch them.
quite evident when you walk about, you notice there's something odd going on.
Right. There's one other concept that the people of Val are not familiar with.
Oh yeah, what's this?
Love.
So who do they think is best placed to discuss it?
The lovesick puppy dog and his girlfriend.
Yeah, Landon asks about love as Chekhov holds her. But again, Akuta tells them that Val has forbidden it.
I think we heard this at the top, didn't we? In any event, the group welcomes these visitors and puts flowers, some kind of sort of lei type things on them.
I think Spock is a little bit uncomfortable.
And then everyone laughs at his name, which really bugs him.
Yeah.
He's seriously annoyed.
You would be. It's not that weird compared to like Akuta, Spock.
Yeah. There's no resolution either. He's just left annoyed and we move on.
You've got a silly name. Let's go.
They're shown into a hut where Chekhov is a little bit confused.
Why?
Because the planet keeps trying to kill them, but now they're being welcomed by its inhabitants.
Kirk agrees before he communicates with Scotty. So up in the bridge, what do we find out?
There's no change. And Kirk's irritated by this and tells Scotty to use his imagination and, if necessary, and this is quite a big point, discard the nacelles. That means that the ship can separate into two parts.
Can it?
Apparently. We never see it, but it looks like it can.
Okay.
We see this more in the Next Generation, where a similar sort of designed ship, you can separate the saucer section.
Okay.
Scotty is putting everything over. Kirk says put all power, and it's like, why have you not thought of this, Scotty?
Yeah.
But anyway, Scotty's going to put everything except life support into the impulse engines.
Yeah, he says that it will be dangerous. However, Kirk tells him to do it.
Yes.
Back down in the hut.
McCoy has run a report on the natives and found that they don't age, and he doesn't know how old they are.
How has he managed to do this? You can't just go about inspecting people carrying out medicals.
He's got his little scanner. Can
you do it? Yeah, okay, I suppose.
Age indeterminate.
Yeah, you can't find any harmful bacteria. There's no degeneration of tissue or bone. Effectively, they're not aging, but he's no idea how they're doing it or therefore what age they are.
Spock notes that there's not even any ill effects from the sun due to the atmosphere.
Yes, and they go on. I think Kirk describes their simple diet, the controlled temperature, a lack of enemies or vices, and
apart from those flowers, obviously.
Quite clearly, and considers that it may indeed be paradise. I think they'll definitely fix that. They don't like it when something's simple, do they?
No, well, I think they're going to discuss it in a few minutes as well.
They are. And it's again, it's a sort of a change in attitudes here, a change in approach, which, yeah, we can discuss.
Yeah, these guys have been living forever, and 3 of my men died in the last half an hour.
Yeah, we're going to rough this place up.
A gong sounds at this point, and the people head off to see Val.
And so they follow and covertly watch what's going on.
Yeah, the villagers are putting something, I thought it was rocks, but maybe fruit.
Yeah, I think it's just food.
Into Val's mouth. But Spock concludes from this that Val is a machine. If it was fruit, then wouldn't that suggest the opposite?
It depends what you mean by a machine. I mean, you can get a mechanical machine, but the human body is a machine, isn't it? There's organisms.
Well, Spock says there's nothing living. So why would an artificial thing need organic matter to feed it?
Lubrication.
I suppose like a car needs fuel.
Or oil.
It's natural.
Yeah.
Anyhow, Kirk thinks he might go and have a shot at approaching Val now.
But as soon as they stand up, the eye of the serpent lights up and a rumble is heard, so they promptly crouch back down.
Yes, Spock thinks that the machine might have a rudimentary intelligence. But Kirk leaps to a great conclusion.
What's that?
The fact that it needs to eat means that it must not have an endless power reserve.
However, Spock reminds him that it may not help them, as the Enterprise now has only 10 hours left.
Despite this, Kirk continues to work his theory about Val weakening around feeding time.
Yeah, and tells him to check the electromagnetic section of the astrophysics lab for an estimate of the total amount of energy being used to pull the Enterprise in and measure it hour by hour. Like, really?
I want a graph, and I want it in a few hours.
Yeah. We're back at the Val's cave sometime later. McCoy joins him, who, of course, has a view on Spock's theory.
What's going on, Jim?
Missed call.
In my view, a splendid example of reciprocity.
It would take a computerized Vulcan mind such as yours to make that kind of a statement.
Doctor, you insist on applying human standards to non-human cultures. I remind you that humans are only a tiny minority in this galaxy.
There are certain absolutes, Mr. Spock, and one of them is the right of humanoids to a free and unchained environment. The right to have conditions which permit growth.
Another is their right to choose a system which seems to work for them.
Jim, you're not just going to stand by and be blinded to what's going on here. These are humanoids, intelligent. They need to advance and grow. Don't you understand what my readings indicate? There's been no change or progress here in at least 10,000 years. This isn't life. It's stagnation.
Doctor, these people are healthy and they are happy. Whatever you choose to call it, this system works, despite your emotional reaction to it.
It might work for you, Mr. Spock, but it doesn't work for me. Humanoids living so they can service a hunk of tin.
Gentlemen, I think this philosophical argument can wait until our ship's out of danger.
I feel like I've missed something about Val and what Val is and how Val works. They all seem to suddenly have this clear picture, and I didn't get it watching the episode.
I think the only indication that we had was when Akuta said that Val provides everything for them.
Yep, and then Spock's got his readings of these vibrations, which could be anything, and then they put food into the snake mouth.
They obviously worship him.
Yeah, but where do they get this conclusion that it's a computer of some kind?
Don't know. Well, from Spock's readings. It's not human.
Yeah, is it clear enough? Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. But also it's worth, they talk about, or McCoy talks about how there's humanoids living just to...
Yeah, service a hunk of tin.
Yeah, is that any different from servicing a made-up creature in the sky?
Yeah, dedicate your entire life to worshipping something that doesn't exist.
Yeah, you can't prove you never seen.
The hunk of tin is real.
Yeah. It's the typical sort of, our religion's fine, but you go to the jungle or some primitive tribe and they're worshipping the thunder monster or whatever it is and you laugh at them. It's absolutely no different.
Yeah. More people believe what we believe, therefore we're right. Mm-hmm. But not that other group of religious people.
They're silly. Imagine worshipping something like that, like Val.
Flying horses and mountains that move. That's ridiculous. 9 armed deities. What? Multiple deities? That's ridiculous. Monotheism, that's where it's at.
And we've had this discussion before, that they're quite happy and they insist on coming in. They're doing no harm to anyone else. But McCoy in this case is the aggressor. He wants to smash up this civilization because he doesn't think it's the way that they should be living. Yes,
and it's a similar argument to the one that we saw in... What was the name of the episode with the perpetual war that was done by the computers? Armageddon, Taste of Armageddon.
Yep.
It was Kirk making the argument on that occasion, but McCoy's making a similar argument now that there needs to be progress or they're not really living.
So again, I am happy in terms of this episode that they have addressed this, that it wasn't just taken for granted, that should be the attitude.
Yeah, Spock challenges it.
Yeah.
Anyhow, we now hear from Scotty, who says that the beam is losing power, but only at a nominal level.
But it is going to take another 8 hours for them to get all power to Impulse.
Yeah, it's cutting it quite tight.
Yeah, he accepts that, but I liked his outlook.
Yes, it means that if they fail, then they don't have long to suffer before they die.
Yeah, I'm not even suffering, but suffering in terms of knowing what's coming up.
So they've got hope going right to the last minute.
That's the way you want it.
Yeah. It's a bit like in the Galileo 7, when they were trying their last gasp plan to get off the planet.
Yeah. Back in the hut.
Martha's simpering again.
Yes.
She's a poor woman.
Well, she's certainly agitated and has to be told to sit down by Kirk as he asks her to speculate on what would happen if someone on the planet died.
Yeah, we then get a really awkward conversation as if they're all teenagers.
Yeah.
About reproduction. Spock's theory is that Val would give them directions on how to produce a replacement. And McCoy thinks it's ridiculous that a machine could instruct a humanoid in that sort of endeavour.
And she started to argue that respond that the people don't know anything about, well, you know, how it's done, and starts getting a bit flustered.
Just a little bit.
Putting her on the spot. I also like their discussion on how someone might die. They might fall off a cliff.
Over at Val's mouth, Akuta is receiving a message. We don't learn just now what it is, but I'm sure we'll soon find out.
I think it's an order which he confirms shall be done.
He does.
Pretty ominous, really.
Well, especially with the ominous music.
Yeah, it's never going to be good.
No. Please show more hospitality to your guests. Oh, it shall be done.
We're now in a garden setting.
Yes, Chekhov and Martha are out for a romantic stroll in the poisonous flowers.
A very familiar score accompanied them.
I think we've heard this a few times, haven't we?
I think so. And we see that two others, Makora and Sienna, they're watching on like a couple of doggers.
Yes, but they don't really understand the concept.
No, a couple of perverts in the bushes watching the young lovers.
Accidental perverts.
I think deliberate perverts in this case.
They're just intrigued, like children.
She calls him
Pav.
Pav, yes. Now, this is the first time we've heard Chekhov's first name, is that right?
Yes, it's short for Pavarotti.
Is it?
No.
Okay.
Pavel, I believe.
Nedved.
And his middle name's like Antonovich, or I can't remember.
Something very Russian sounding.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, take that normal name and put itch at the end.
She asks him if he thinks that the ship can actually break away and they can get back on board.
He's like, I don't care. As long as we're together, I'm quite fine being here.
She accepts this, and see, I don't... What about your family? What about your friends? It's all very well saying, yeah, we'll be happy staying on this planet, but haven't you considered your mother and father, what they'll think if they never see you again?
Well, that's life. You're a soldier.
They're not soldiers.
And Starfleet's a military organisation.
They're not soldiers, are they?
Well
McCoy's not
documented.
Spock's not a soldier. McCoy's not a soldier.
They're all soldiers.
They're not at all.
They're all part of the war machine.
Yeah, well, they certainly act that way on occasion.
Two of these folk kiss as the others watch on. And then there's a conversation between the two native people.
Yeah, they're puzzled about this intimacy.
They mimic it. First with the hand holding and then with the kissing.
There was one point here where he slowly puts out his hand. I thought he was going for the boob.
Did you?
Yeah, I was like, surely not.
That would be a big step. I don't know what Val would have done then, because just the kissing brings thunder upon them.
Yes, it does.
And Akuta shows up to chastise them, as if from nowhere.
Like a parent watching what you two up to.
Hand in your pocket. Akuta at this point sends them off to gather the men of the village.
Yeah, does he say, I think, that the strangers are now a danger and they have to meet in the clear place when
Yes,
you're asleep?
They do. There are instructions from Val.
And that's where they do meet. What does... Well, Akuta's got these instructions.
Yes, he's got instructions to kill the visitors, but they don't understand what killing is either, so he's brought along a melon and a bit of wood to demonstrate how you would kill a man.
And it's got to all be done... and they've got to do it all... And they have to do them all in the morning. I did enjoy this. I thought it was quite funny.
Yes, it was hilarious.
Here's how you do it.
Here's a head.
Get a big
Take
stick.
a stick, smack the head explodes, job done. He doesn't look that comfortable with his demonstration, but he thinks the message has got through to his colleagues.
Yeah.
Cohorts.
Back at the hut, with the others asleep, Spock and Kirk discuss the moral quandary that they find themselves in.
I am concerned, Captain. This may not be an ideal society, but it is a viable one.
Bones was right. These people aren't living, they're existing. They don't create, they don't produce, they don't even think. They exist to service a machine.
If we do what it seems we must, in my opinion, we'll be in direct violation of the non-interference directive.
These are people, not robots. They should have the opportunity of choice. We owe it to them to interfere.
Starfleet Command may think otherwise.
I'll take my chances. Why don't you have a look around? Enterprise, Mr. Scott.
Here, sir.
How's it going, Scotty?
Almost ready, sir. We'll need a half an hour yet.
You realize that within 45 minutes, the ship will be pulled down into the atmosphere.
I know that. As you said, that's cutting things fine.
Yes.
Captain.
Kirk out. What is it?
Disturbing. The people of Val seem to have disappeared.
So, tell me about this non-interference directive. That has...
The Prime Directive, we've mentioned this previously.
Non-interference? They're always interfering.
The first time it came up, I think, was in the Archon episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, they shouldn't be interfering, particularly, I think later it's defined as they should not interfere with pre-warp civilizations.
They do it all the time.
Well, Kirk had specific orders to contact these people.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't really blame him on this occasion.
No, I'm talking about interfering in terms of...
Changing the course of their entire society.
Yeah.
Well, it's probably based on his experiences that they tighten up on this regulation in the future. Picard's a big one for not interfering.
Good.
Just sit and watch folk killing each other and then disappear.
Sure. Over at Val's cave,
Spock reminds Kirk about the force field, on this occasion not by walking into it.
and Kirk shouts out that they mean no harm, but the weather is changing for the worse again, and Val's eyes sparkle, which Spock takes to be a sign that they are being read.
Yeah. Val then hits Spock with some lightning, whereas the first guy got disintegrated. It just tears Spock's uniform.
Yes, forcing Kirk to lift his smoking, damaged body to the safety of the village. I quite liked that effect with the shirt ripped open.
Yeah, but it's the second time in this episode where something that's killed a red shirt has mildly inconvenienced Spock.
Yeah, but you've told me before that Vulcans are far stronger.
They are, but this seems to take it to quite an extreme.
You think?
Well, I think so. It's convenience. Plot armour. That's what he's got going on there. An early case of plot armour.
In any case, back at the village, Spock comes round and McCoy identifies his injury as non-serious second-degree burns.
Yeah, Spock says he has a talent for understatement.
Yeah, because I think he said that
It might hurt a bit, yeah.
But they don't have time to regroup as they are suddenly under attack.
Yes, Akuta implements his plan perfectly, killing the last remaining red shirt, but the other men are rubbish.
Absolutely atrocious. I was very impressed with Landon here.
Yeah, she takes a few of them down, doesn't she?
Yeah.
They're easily overpowered by the Enterprise crew and sent to the hut themselves.
Yeah, I think also Kirk orders that the women people are to be rounded up and put in there with them.
Spock notes that McCoy should have no more concerns about the society as it's clearly following the human path, having now learned to kill.
Like that. Good line. Up in the bridge.
Scotty says the work's all done, they're ready to try and break free.
But they've only got 12 minutes left.
They do. Kirk gives the order to proceed immediately, and it initially seems to work.
But suddenly there's a jolt, and the result is that they've maybe gained about an hour or so, but every system on the ship has blown and there's nothing left to try.
Yeah, Scotty gets fired by Kirk at this point.
Yeah, with a heavy heart he grants his final request. And then, this is probably my favourite scene in terms of what I like about the episode.
Okay, so Kirk is lamenting getting everybody killed.
Yeah, he sounds as if he's on the edge of a breakdown when he considers the 400 who will die because he followed orders. And yeah, so said it before, but I like this. I think if Kirk had to keep doing what he was doing and not be aware of it, I would be extremely annoyed. But also I think that the show would be far more superficial, far less developed.
Yeah, I think you've also got Vietnam parallels in here as well.
Mm-hmm.
With the whole following order thing and changing another society.
Yeah, I think we've discussed that before, and obviously due to the time when it was being filmed, it would be front and centre of lots of...
I think it's one of those things that if the censors had really picked up on it, they probably wouldn't have allowed.
Well,
because it's anti-war.
Yeah, I suppose
this.
It would depend on perhaps the network that was being shown on.
Yeah.
Although I don't know if back then there was such a thing as a sort of left-leaning or...
It wasn't maybe quite as pronounced. I think everybody was just a bit more cautious.
Yeah.
So I think something that as overtly anti-war as this, had it been picked up, may well have struggled to pass the censors. Anyhow, the villagers tried to leave the hut as Kirk is doing this lamentation.
Yeah, because the gong, the feeding gong sounds.
So it must be Val that rings the gong.
Or maybe, yeah.
Because the others are all in the hut.
Yeah. And Chekhov has to prevent these people from heading over there. But this provides the eureka moment for Kirk,
Yes, he's roused from his melancholy.
What's he realised?
That Val is weak. He tells McCoy, under no circumstances, let these guys feed Val.
Yeah. On the way to Val's cave, Kirk communicates with Scotty to tell him to lock phasers on the energy field on the planet.
Yes, Scotty says the phasers are still working, but they're not powerful enough to penetrate the field.
But Kirk knows something else and claims that they won't have to, and to stand by for the order.
Back at the hut, Akuta is quite distressed.
Very much so. He wants to go and feed his master, his god.
He does, but he's not allowed to do so.
So, over at the cave, Spock tells Kirk that the energy field appears to be getting weaker, as if Val is trying to draw on reserve sources of power.
Scotty's ordered to fire and does so.
Yeah, and this causes Val to use even more.
Yes, Spock notes that there's a massive increase in power going to the force field, but the phasers do not relent, and eventually all power readings cease and the entrance to the cave goes dark.
Val is dead.
Scotty confirms that they are no longer trapped in the beam and they have enough power to leave.
Yeah, well, things will be ready in 1 hour.
Kirk rehires him and asks him not to beam everyone up and leave immediately, but to beam an engineering team down to the surface.
Yeah, he then communicates with McCoy and Chekhov with an order to release the people.
Akuta is upset that they have killed his god.
Yeah, he wants to know how they will cope without Val, who provided for them, but Kirk summarily dismisses this and tells them, life's easy, you'll enjoy it, and just to get on with it.
He gets a brief lecture on self-sufficiency. He's like, I will teach you to fish.
Yeah.
And you'll enjoy growing your own food.
Yeah, they're going to like it whether they like it or not.
When it comes round to children again, Kirk gets a bit tongue-tied and draws a line under things.
Yeah, I think we leave them all giggling like the children themselves.
Akuta is not as angry as you might expect him to be.
No, I mean, you would expect their entire existence, their entire way of life has been put out of commission.
He's maybe a bit in shock.
I think so.
Up on the Enterprise, McCoy and Spock are having a minor disagreement, having returned from the planet.
Yeah, Spock is expressing his concern to Kirk that when he arrives that they might not have done the right thing.
McCoy thinks they have basically corrected for a malign influence and put the people back on an evolutionary track.
I think Kirk agrees with this.
He thinks it's a lesson in relying too heavily on machines.
So Spock asks if he is aware of the story of Genesis, and Kirk confirms that he is aware of what befell Adam and Eve after tasting the apple.
He objects, however, to being cast in the role of Satan on this occasion.
They turn this on Spock as both Kirk and McCoy circle him and ask him to think if there's anyone on the Enterprise who may be similar in looks to Beelzebub.
Spock says he can't bring anybody to mind.
With a wink and a raise of the eyebrow.
And we move on to another adventure next week.
We do.
Do you think Val deserved what he got?
Well, as you said, I don't know what Val is.
I don't understand, still don't understand what was Val's intention, what was his purpose.
I think we had to hear more of Val either through his own voice or even through Akuta. He should have been speaking that way when you get possessed and you get into a trance and you talk.
Maybe give him snake eyes.
Yeah, that type of thing. So I would like to have heard a defence or a reason behind it. Like, this is what I'm doing.
Logic, yeah. Well, what's these people? People aren't being exploited. They're not doing anything.
No, they literally have a system in place where they're happy, they're living forever in a paradise. There's absolutely no reason. It might not just be the case that the Val is no longer there, but they might end up fighting with each other. There'll be disease, they kill,
And how much evolving can they do from one group of 10 to 20 people?
And also, yeah, why do they think that they are the unevolved state? Surely, get into a position in a society
where we can live forever.
We can live forever and everyone's always happy. It's what we're striving for. We shouldn't be considering that a failure.
Yeah, but they don't have technology or conflict.
Yeah.
Those barbarians.
Yeah, so I'm disappointed with that. But like I said, I think that this episode appears to be, in my view, unfairly considered. I think there's enough development and enough self-awareness and...
Yeah, I like the way that it leaves some of the questions open as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, were they better off at the end of the episode than at the start, the aliens? It doesn't try to tell us one way or the other. Well, the characters have their views, but they don't all agree.
Yeah. So it was, a fairly, maybe a subtly sophisticated episode.
I think one of the reasons that it was better than some episodes is that Spock was in the landing party. I hate it when they leave him behind on the Enterprise.
Yeah.
It takes away half the story for me. So I liked this one, and there were some good moments. I liked the moment where, yet again, we see the strength of the relationship between Spock and Kirk when he's willing to take deadly flower bullets for him.
Flower power for sure, yeah.
And he's willing to throw hand grenades around and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, we discussed, it did have an awful lot of flaws.
But a good episode overall.
Yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it. I was expecting it to be quite disappointing, and I wasn't.
Yeah.
So
these are the best of the space hippies that we encounter on Star Trek.
Oh, okay. Look forward to that.
Look forward to that in season 3.
Yeah. Okay, do you have any trivia for us this week?
Bits and pieces. The original air date for The Apple was 13th October 1967. And finally, after 3 in a row for Mark Daniels, we have a change in director, but it's still a familiar face, Joseph Pevney, helming the 7th of his 14 Star Trek episodes.
Big Joey Pete.
We discussed him back in the podcast for Arena, so go and listen to that if you want to learn more. Max Ehrlich was the writer. This was his only Star Trek episode, but he also wrote for shows like Suspense and The Wild Wild West. He died in 1983 at the age of 73. David Soul, you may or may not have spotted him.
I can't believe this. Yeah, afterwards I looked at the cast list, noted Starsky or Hutch, whatever one it was, I think it's Hutch, and even when I knew who it was, I couldn't, in my mind, I couldn't place the two of them together.
So he played Makora. That was one of the two perverts.
Yeah.
He's obviously best known, as you say, for Starsky and Hutch, but he also appeared in loads of other shows. He's still acting. I think he appeared in shows including Murder, She Wrote and Holby City. I think he's done a bit more UK-based work in the last 10 years.
I think he's based here, yeah, and also I think he's a bit of a singing career, released a few albums.
He's 77 years old now.
There you go.
Keith Andes played Akuta. This was his only appearance on Star Trek, but he appeared in films like Tora 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 and Clash by Night. He died in 2005 at the age of 85. Finally, Celeste Yarnall. She appeared as Chekhov's love interest.
She was lovely.
Martha. This was her only Star Trek role, but she's also appeared in shows like Bonanza, Melrose Place. And she was Gloria in the 1971 Columbo pilot Ransom for a Dead Man.
A connection at last.
Which makes her this week's Columbo connection.
Good.
Trivia-wise, this is the episode where we, like I said during the episode, it's first referenced the fact that the main section of the Enterprise can separate from the rest. Apparently the comparison of Spock to Satan was a concern for advertisers throughout the run of the series, even before it got mentioned on the show.
Why? Because it pointed
devilry, images of devilry and stuff like that. It's bad.
No, I just meant
sacrilegious, blasphemous.
Yeah, but no, I just meant what?
The fact he had the pointy ears.
Yeah.
Okay. And probably the haircut.
Right.
All 4 red shirts in the landing party die horribly, making this the go-to episode for people who want to learn about the red shirt phenomenon. I've never had it quite so bad. And in terms of international titles, our Japanese friends opt for Shino Paradisu, Paradise of Death, which is an oxymoron, I would say. And in Germany, they opt for Die Stunde der Erkenntnis, the hour of realization. It's probably the hour of realizing this village is an awful long way away as they walk. And next week, it's the 6th episode of season 2, The Doomsday Machine, which is probably another paradise.
Yeah. Sounds intriguing.
It does.
Okay.
You can get in touch with us if you want during the week on social media. We're on Instagram, Facebook and Twitter, where we're at Trek Podcast for all 3. You can also get hold of us on astartrekpodcast.com. There's a post up for each show, and you can listen to the episodes on YouTube with a nice pictorial accompaniment if you so desire.
Until then.
Well, until next week, yes. Cheerio.
Bye bye.